Meghan Kasperlik, congratulations on the Emmy nomination for designing the costumes for Mare of Easttown. This isn't your first time at the Emmys. You were there a couple of years ago for Fahrenheit 451.
Mhm.
So I guess my first question just has to be, working in reality-based, like you are with Mare of Easttown, must present different challenges, but still challenges compared to the fantasy, the creative liberties you had with Fahrenheit 451. How,
Yeah. Yes. So anytime you deal with, I was there for Fahrenheit 51, but right before Mare of Easttown, I did the Watchmen series. So I was familiar with like doing a lot of fantasy, but with a little mix of reality. So going over to Mare, it was definitely, how do we make everyone look super authentic, but still have interest? Wanted everyone to look like they were normal, regular everyday people, but there still had to be interest that, I didn't want anything of the costume to stand out without it being part of the story. So it was all about storytelling through the costumes, yet making them as lived in and real as possible.
Right. And I think that's one of the reasons the show resonated with people was the authenticity. And what I also, you believe not only that those people wore those clothes, but they lived in those houses. And so do you work with the production designer on that integration of the look? Because it really is extraordinary. You felt like those characters would be going into those sort of sloppy chests of drawers to get those clothes.
Yes, and I worked very closely with Keith Cunningham, who's the production designer, and then Edward McLaughlin, who is the set decorator, and making sure that the clothes and the costumes worked with the setting, with the set and the settings. I love a lot of texture in the costumes and the fabrics, but Keith also loves a lot of texture in his set design. So we really had to work together because sometimes I went into sets and I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much wallpaper and photographs and knickknacks that I was like, we cannot have someone coming in a very loud print. It all had to be subdued and muted, so it kind of made sense. And then Edward and I worked together, and I would give him like, oh, we didn't use this on Mara, but it's part of her world, it's part of her closet. So we should definitely put it in her closet for when she's going in there or in the drawers and whatnot. So we did definitely work close together.
Well, and I'm so glad you mentioned that, because one of my little pet peeves in shows is sometimes they open the closet and there's only the three costumes they're going to wear, the three, and it's sort of like, yeah, everything about it for all the characters felt authentic. But, I think about it's set in Pennsylvania. Its nickname is the Keystone State. And I think for you, there was a keystone to getting into Mare's character, right? Working with Kate Winslet, that wasn't there one particular find that kind of you felt was unlocking the key to her character?
We had two massive fittings when it came to Kate when she first got to Pennsylvania. I spoke with her prior to her coming and really sent over mood boards, so we were on the same page. And I said to her, like, how far willing to go make it as authentic, because sometimes actors, only want to go so far and they want to still maintain kind of looking, I would say, kind of looking the stature of the movie star or the TV star. And Kate was all in, so it was amazing. So we had two massive fittings, made sure that maybe the t-shirts didn't hit at the most flattering spot, because in reality, we don't alter our t-shirts like you do in TV and film. So when we were finding her look, we found this Filson jacket, and we used the jacket as kind of her, it's almost like her armor as a detective. It was her detective jacket that she always wore. And it had a slight age to it, but it wasn't really completely falling apart because she still had to be presentable and going to see people. But it was just kind of the piece that always worked with her and always went with her everywhere she was going while she was searching and hunting and finding what she was doing when she was a detective.
Well, it's so interesting you mentioned that t-shirt's not particularly fitting, because I know she sort of had to fight for, hey, that take where it's sort of riding up, that's my best acting, keep it in that way, because it's as you just said, that's what her character would wear. I know you sort of also, you had to turn detective, I think, for one of Julianne Nicholson's scripted costumes. And is that rare, by the way? I mean, Brad Inglesby wrote in specifically that Laurie was wearing a Dave Matthews t-shirt, band t-shirt, from a concert. Is it rare to come across that in a script where there's a specific reference?
It's rare if it's specific. It's there sometimes that there's like a sports team, or sometimes there's a there's a band. It's kind of rare. Sometimes it's a general description, like, oh, we want this person to wear a band t-shirt, so what's clearable? I happen to have a friend who has it with Dave Matthews, and so they gave me their management, so that's how we got it cleared so easily, because I had a connection through a friend of a friend, or through a friend. So that was great and easy. And also there's a Cubs t-shirt, and we used a lot of Philly stuff throughout the series. So those things weren't necessarily scripted, but I wanted to make sure other logos were in the show.
But I think your attention to detail, because I believe that for the Dave Matthews, you figured out when was Lori in college. So I want to make sure to get that specific t-shirt. I think that's the part of the job that you do that people like me are you're unaware of how much work goes into it, but you appreciate it as the viewer. And I know your attention to detail also involved, I think, some road trips, right? You're down in the Philadelphia area, and didn't you spend a lot of time at a cultural institution of you?
Yes, the Cultural Institution of Philadelphia is Wawa, and it's been in many articles that I sat in the parking lots and went into the Wawas to kind of watch people, and it was really telling of like what this area of Philadelphia is like and what people are wearing. And I went to a number of them, and I also went to a couple of restaurants and hardware stores. I just kind of observed if Mare or Lori or John lived in this area or worked in this area, where would they be going for their coffee? What hardware would they be getting supplies from? Maybe what restaurant would they go to have a pizza or, a hoagie or something? So I was looking in those areas to get inspiration for who these people really were. It was really phenomenal. And I think I saw it between like a few places that I went to in the Wawa. I really got the feel for the Coatesville, Aston part of Pennsylvania. It was really remarkable.
So you've got the feel, then the sourcing, are you secondhand Rose? I mean, are you going to secondhand stores? Are you going into chain stores? Where actually do you source these costumes?
On a lot of my projects that are contemporary, I like to shop in the areas where the people would shop. I never want it to be just because they're the leading lady or the leading man that they have the designer t-shirt from, Saks or Barney's or Bergdorf's. I don't really like to, I want it to be, who is this character? Where would they shop in real life? What's obtainable to them? How much money are they willing to spend on their clothes? I feel it helps with building the story and building the character. So Mare and other people, maybe clothes would have been a Macy's or a TJ Maxx. I spend a lot of time in a TJ Maxx, but predominantly I spent, especially for Lori and a mix between Siobhan, I thrifted a lot of things. I had a local shopper who I said, when she first started, I said, I want you to spend a whole week going to every hardware store, fire station, coffee shop, record store, anything that's local Philadelphia, obtain all of the shirts, t-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, anything that you can get, and get clearable from the local businesses. Because I find so often that in these communities, you wear the t-shirt that you got from the softball game that you participated from the firehouse, or there was the football field, the local high school had a fair at the school, and they were selling things or giving stuff, or there was a prize, and you wear that shirt throwing it under a sweatshirt or throwing it under your jacket to go do things, or the hardware store. So there's probably about 20 to 25 local businesses that are showcased throughout the show, throughout the series, as well as the Philadelphia Flyers, the Eagles, the 76ers. We peppered in the sports teams as well.
Right, and like I said, again, it's sort of subconsciously as a viewer, you're taking that all in and appreciating it. When you get the thrift store stuff, obviously is worn and kind of broken in. So when your shopper comes back with some stuff from TJ Maxx, or you get, how do you get it ready for filming, right? How often, how many times does it have to go through the washer before you sort of feel like it's wearable?
Right. I had a great ager dyer who I worked with before in years past. And so I said, I want it to look like it's been washed 5 times, or I want it to look like that actor has had it for 5 years. Right. So there's a balance. So maybe Siobhan will be a little less washed and worn in because she wants to still feel cool and look cool, but still have a vintage find. But Mare and Lori and even Helen, like I wanted it to look like they've lived in these costumes a bit. So it really depends. You know, we definitely have tricks and techniques to make the clothing look aged, but I think everyone gets excited when I say, I would like this to look like it's 5 years old because I don't want holes in it. I just want it to look washed a lot. So
Right.
it takes a little bit of an extra step.
So you mentioned Helen, that's the wonderful Emmy nominee, double Emmy nominee, Jean Smart. So she's also in this wonderful HBO Max show, Hacks, glamorous Las Vegas stand-up. But you worked with her on Watchmen. So, I mean, and they're kind of this tough as nails FBI agent. I mean, what was Jean Smart's reaction when you trotted out some of that Helen gear? Because I mean, she was probably the most colorful character and the most colorfully costumed character.
Yes, she still wanted to have a little life in her.
Yes.
I thought was absolutely fantastic because first of all, Jean's comedic timing on anything is just so stellar. It's just so amazing. But really, in speaking with her, we had some really washed and worn out clothes, and she didn't want to look as down and out as Mare, that maybe she was still had a little bit of the hope in the family of like kind of repairing the family. So I put her in a little bit more color, but just like any grandparent, they're not necessarily like most grandparents, especially in kind of the Midwest, you know, Pennsylvania, Philadelphia area. They're not going out and buying new clothes all the time. They're taking care of their clothing. Right. So it was important that her clothing did not have holes and stains in it, just had been washed down. Right. So Jean came in and she was pretty and trying everything on, and we were in the room and we're like, something is just missing. Like, what is the one element? And Jean is she has a great physique and she's very long and lean. And she said, maybe I should have a butt. Maybe the character should have a butt. So I made her almost like a fake butt and a hip pad to give her more of a pear shape. Oh. And it just really kind of transformed her. And then with her haircut, it just really kind of made it that she was this woman who was at home and helping and taking care of, but still had a little life in her. So it was a great addition. And it really, I think, helped add to the character.
Well, and you mentioned the haircut, and that's, again, I think with the costume, the production design, the hair and makeup, it's so integral. Nothing stands out, and that's why everyone's Emmy nominated. Somebody else who's Emmy nominated, Jean Smart, is obviously Kate and Julianne, but Evan Peters for his very first Emmy nomination. And he's the outsider. And I think in terms of his costume, I mean, he's wearing, I believe, sort of a costume because his character is hiding is a secret. But how did you come to that look with him?
So when Evan came in, he's such a phenomenal character actor. So when he came in, we kind of discussed prior to him coming, and then when he got there for his first fitting, a little bit of a different character approach. And we put him in the costumes and whatnot, and Evan and I loved it. But as we started reading the scripts more and more and talking to Brad, it almost felt like a costume. It felt too costumey. Right. And he plays amazing characters on all the American Horror Story, and we just didn't want it to be that. Right. So I spoke with Brad, and I really looked at some of the guys that were like a little bit more suited or like dressier in the area. And I was like, they all go to the same kind of two places and they get the same suits. Right. And if Evan's character has to be from the outside and he's maybe from the neighboring town or 2 towns over, he kind of has his own shield of who he is. And he's trying to be prove that he was this hot shot, but it's all a persona. So right. What can make him one step up, but still not too out of, he's not Wall Street. He's not living in a big city. Like, what can make him so look a little different? And his costume was like, literally, it was just a little bit of a nicer suit with a nice shirt tie. And it just worked because then when the other detectives came in, they were just a little bit more down, and it just really elevated who he was playing.
Well, listen, I mean, I think all of it combined is the reason why you got this second Emmy nomination. And what I love, as I said at the outset, is it shows your versatility. you know, Watchmen, Fahrenheit 451, now this Mare of Easttown, something so completely different and yet equally an achievement. And I'm so glad that the TV Academy recognized it.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.